Hey, welcome to Take Warning with Jake Warren. I'm your host, Jake Warren. Thanks for joining us. This is episode number 2, podcasting from sunny and beautiful Victoria, British Columbia. We've been having a pretty good summer so far. I'd say this is probably about 15 days in a row with sun, a bit of cloud here and there, but no real rain. It's been awesome. Haven't really done much. Haven't gone to a lake or anything like that. I've sat out in the backyard a lot and tried to get a bit of sun while drinking wine. That's been as close as I've been able to get to a beach or a lake, which is really pathetic. Man, there's so many things you can do here on Vancouver Island when you do have a vehicle and you're able to get to the Gulf Islands and you're able to island hop. You're able to go out and enjoy the lakes, all the different beaches. Fuck, it's an awesome place to live. So on today's show, first of all, I want to say the quality of the audio that we're getting from our interviews, or that I'm getting from my interviews, and being able to put together here in the studio, which is, of course, my home studio, the quality is going to get better, but I still think it's a bit shaky. Hopefully this episode, when we cut to our interviews here, you're not going to be too disappointed at what you're listening to. I'm trying to get better at this. So bear with me. Take warning. Will eventually be a clean and crisp show. That's what I want. I hope everybody else is having an awesome summer so far. It is July 12th. I haven't looked at the news today, really. I leave it up to Kelly to tell me what's going on in the world. Over breakfast, she usually is the first one to dig into the day's news. And we always end up just shaking our heads and sometimes ending up in an argument because it's just, I don't know, man. It's just, I don't like fucking listening to the news these days. But I am still curious, I guess, what's going on out there. We haven't blown up yet. And that's, I guess, the best I can ask for right now. That's fucking bleak, eh? Don't want to be too bleak here. I'm actually in a really awesome mood. Summer, like I said, has been awesome, and I think it's really put me in a better mood all around. So on the show today, I wanted to talk about mixed martial arts in general, and my love of martial arts. I've got 2 great interviews. One with a great fighter who was born and raised here. She really doesn't need an introduction. Her resume is absolutely incredible. Sarah Kaufman, who owns Zuma and trains people out of Zuma. That's her gym. She's, of course, teaches jiu-jitsu and kickboxing and other disciplines. I had a chance to chat with her about a few different things. And my good friend Jonathan Phil, who is just a guy, I guess, who fucking loves mixed martial arts and trained as a kid. And I met him in the film industry. He works as a on-set dresser. And we worked together for 6 weeks last year on a made-for-TV film. We just realized right away from chatting with one another about music, about martial arts, that we had lots in common, and we basically just hung out together for that whole 6 weeks that we worked on that movie and talked about those things, mostly martial arts, mostly MMA. And he's got quite a history. His son's involved in martial arts. He's 12 years old now, and John is really, really supportive of that. So I got an interview with him, and we talk about that, and we talk about really is the safety of children and the safety of young people in martial arts, and with the popularity of MMA just fucking through the roof right now. And of course the big deal with Conor McGregor fighting Floyd Mayweather. It's just at the top of everyone's list right now of concerns with head injuries. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We'll talk a little bit about the safety of it for kids, and what the right way is to teach children martial arts. And if they decide to go into mixed martial arts, what's the right way to do that? Take warning with Jake Warren. We'll be back right after these commercial messages.
They are the gladiators of the modern age, summoned for a contest of martial arts supermen that becomes a struggle for survival. Kill or be killed. This is the greatest in martial arts entertainment because there can be no second best when you heed the command to kill or be killed. Rated PG.
So I grew up absolutely obsessed with Kung Fu. Bruce Lee, to be exact. Of course, Chuck Norris as well. And then a host of other karate, Kung Fu, martial arts movies that were released in the late 70s and into the early 80s. There was so many great movies that came out at that time. So many bad movies that were really great at the same time. There was a fighter by the name of James Ryan, I believe. There was, of course, Lee Van Cleef. There were Benny Arquindez. There was a great movie called Force 5 that came out. If you can find that on YouTube, I think, or, you know, out there in the world of downloads, you can find Force 5, fucking classic. You know, the whole, we got to build the team to infiltrate this big compound that is, of course, swarming with martial arts superheroes. And yeah, that movie was killer. All the Chuck Norris films, the Octagon, Good Guys Wear Black, all that stuff. I was making weapons when I was like 9, 10. I was just so into that stuff, and I freaked the shit out of my mom. She didn't want to watch karate movies. Well, my dad was one of the first guys to go out and get a VHS player or rent one. So I was pretty stoked when he was just like, yeah, you know, we can just go pick out these movies. And of course, it was just all action and kung fu movies like The Octagon and Good Guys Wear Black and all the James Ryan films, Kill or Be Killed. Of course, a little bit later on, all the ninja movies that came out, Revenge of the Ninja, Sho Kosugi, all his films. And of course, the champion of all, Bruce Lee. I mean, there wasn't enough real authentic Bruce Lee movies ever made, unfortunately, because he passed away. But man, the ones that he did make. My all-time favorite Bruce Lee movie is Return of the Dragon, otherwise known as The Way of the Dragon. The fight between him and Chuck Norris at the end, that was 1972. They fought in the Colosseum, the Roman Colosseum. Or at least they were supposed to be fighting. I'm watching it right now, and I'm pretty sure that that's a set painting. Oh, just the warm-up scenes before Chuck's doing his kata and Bruce is just chilling in the back, and then that cool shot of the little kitten off in the distance. Other than this climactic scene here at the end, which is awesome, the other best scene, I think, in any of Bruce Lee films is the nunchuck scene where he fights a bunch of dudes in the alley. Same movie. If you've never seen this movie, you've got to watch this, at least these fight scenes. Check out the whole film. Again, classic scenario, you know, good boy from China comes to visit family members in Italy, and there's a surprise, there's a drug kingpin who's trying to extort money from the restaurant that he's working at. So, and he's got to step in and beat the living shit out of everyone.
Movement number 4. Dragon seeks path. Dragon whips his tail.
So my mother wasn't excited about me getting into martial arts. Instead of finding Playboy and Penthouse under my bed, she found Martial Arts Movie Magazine. She found a couple other karate and kung fu magazines. She found some nunchucks that I made. I went to Doman's Lumber, got some wooden doweling, put some U-nails and some chain link together, and man, I had some nunchucks. I had a 3-sectional staff. I had a bunch of throwing stars that I made out of bike sprockets. I was looking for something to get into, I guess. I didn't have a ton of friends, so it was something I could kind of do on my own. I remember hanging out in my mom's one-bedroom apartment on Wilson Street there in Vic West, and I just for hours I would just do kicks by myself, total machio style, in the living room, in a pair of fucking shitty gray sweats. And I practiced nunchucks and I beat the crap out of my elbows. And yeah, my mom found all this stuff and she freaked out. She's like, you got to throw this all away. This is violent. I don't want you getting out there. I guess she thought I was going to go out and hurt people if I got good at it, maybe. Instead of sort of encouraging me to do it as a way to find self-discipline, practice patience, and have some inner strength and inner confidence, which is what I think martial arts, if you're being taught martial arts by the right teacher, that's what it should be teaching you. All of these things and a great amount of humility, really absolute humility. You never want to get into a confrontation. You never want to or should be searching for violence. But if something happens, you have that ability to protect yourself or be aware of the situation and comfortable enough to get out of that situation as fast as possible. And I think that's why martial arts is so important and why so many kids and why so many young people should be considering it as a way of life. That's my opinion.
I will develop myself in a positive manner and avoid anything that may reduce my mental growth or my physical health. Ready, start, go! I will develop self-discipline in order to help bring out the best in myself and others. Set and ease.
So mom wasn't super stoked on me being into martial arts. She didn't want me to take classes. And I kind of gravitated then towards baseball and soccer and just played team sports for the longest time. At a high level, I was on the select team in soccer and I played the all-star team a few seasons until I got to a certain age when I wasn't getting any bigger and everybody else was. All the kids, 12, 13, 14, were turning into monsters on these teams I was playing on, and I wasn't. And I lost interest at around 12, 13, and I discovered skateboarding. And, life changed completely after that. And I kind of gave up thinking about taking martial arts or being interested in it other than to watch movies about it, read about it. I would ask questions about it if I saw someone who was a teacher, an instructor. I always felt like I wanted to go out and take these classes, and I never did until my late 20s. And I started training Kenpo. I stayed with that school for about 3 years, and I was really, really, really into it, and I really enjoyed it. And just one day, just stopped going. I don't know what the circumstances were in my life, but I just stopped going. And I really didn't give martial arts, other than watching movies, still being into Chuck and still being into Bruce. I really didn't think much about it until I was living in Vancouver, mid-2000s, and the Ultimate Fighter TV show came on Spike TV. And that's when Stephan Bonnar fought Forrest Griffin in the finale of the show. And everything changed for so many, many people. For all of the people in the house that were fighting, life changed. For the UFC, it changed. Dana White, it changed. It was overnight that whole UFC world was exposed because of that fight and because of that show, that one season. So many people got to see the inside world of what these athletes and what these martial artists were going through. They got to see how long these martial artists had been training. In some cases, these kids had been wrestlers all through grade school, all through college and university, into the Olympics. In some cases, they were fighters who trained in jiu-jitsu in Brazil from the time they were 3, 4, 5 years old, trained by their entire family, their uncle, their father, their grandfather. we got to see how much time and devotion and experience and passion, blood, sweat, and tears was going into the fights that these young men, at first, young men, were committing to. And it was incredible. I got so into it, and I have been into it ever since.
These guys laid everything on the line.
Like life and death.
So you want to be an ultimate fighter? I would hate to have to score this fight.
So now UFC is bigger than ever. It's one of the fastest growing sports in the world, if not the fastest growing sport, I think. Conor McGregor is fighting Floyd Mayweather. I didn't think that would ever happen. I'm kind of stoked that it is happening. It seems like a bit of a spectacle. It seems like really, it's a huge payday for everybody, and that's why it has to happen. These fighters aren't going to let that get away from them. They just know that no matter what happens inside the ring, they are going to get paid absolutely huge.
I'm just enjoying myself, having a good time. And that's it. As far as the fight, he will be unconscious inside 4 rounds. The movement, the power, the ferociousness. He's not experienced this. He's fought people who have shied away from him. I don't fear him. I don't fear this limited set of fighting. This is a limited set of rules that makes this half a fight, a quarter of a fight.
Obviously, as MMA gets more and more popular, more and more young people are going to be interested in it, and that's what I'm concerned about. At least that's what I'm interested in talking about. So I reached out to Sarah Kaufman, who, of course, needs no introduction. She's one of the top-ranked female fighters in the world, and she's got a great resume. She won just this last March 18th. She beat Jessie Rose Clark in a different promotion, not the UFC, Battlefield FC Korea. So she won by unanimous decision in that fight. But of course, she's fought some of the best women in the entire game. She fought Ronda Rousey, of course, and she beat Miesha Tate, the former UFC champion. She did beat Miesha Tate in Strikeforce.
Circle out, going with the underhooks is Kaufman. Man, she's very, very strong young lady. Former dancer, started dancing at the age of 2. Took up Muay Thai at 17. Rocks Tate with that shot, but Tate stays right in the pocket.
She's had an incredible career so far, and it's not over. And we were so happy. I'm so happy to get an opportunity to chat with great Canadian MMA fighter, Sarah Kaufman.
I was a dancer. I danced in Victoria my whole life. Most of the time at stages, I started with them when I was, 3, and I stayed with them until I was about 19 or 20. I also did some time at Broad Street Dance, but stages was directly above what turned into Zuma. So Adam Zuzak, who's my coach now, he had opened up, sharing a facility with the karate school. He had opened up a women's kickboxing program. And one of my fellow dancers who I was close friends with, her mom signed her up for like a basic trial, do a couple classes for a couple dollars or whatever it was. And so I thought, that'd be fun and I should try it out. And it just happened that there was a class that ran, I think it was from 5 until 6. And then my jazz class started at 6, directly upstairs. So I could do the one class, finish that, boot upstairs, not be late for the next class. And that's how we started. My friend didn't go the first day. I just showed up, and she came another time, and wasn't really her thing, but I loved it and stayed with it and fitted into my schedule when it was available. And then from there, kind of transitioned out of dance and into more on the martial arts side.
What about the first time that you actually took a punch? I mean, there's a huge transition between just kata and training and that sort of things, but actual sparring. What was that experience like for you? The first time that you were in a ring and you were actually trading shots with somebody?
With like the Muay Thai and the kickboxing, there really aren't katas like there are in more traditional martial arts. But it's a lot of just practice. You know, it's a lot of hitting pads, and that's what I loved about it was just that impact of letting out, you know, some of the inner turmoil that I had at 17 and some of those stresses and just letting loose. And as I got better and as I improved my technical skill, I was an annoying kid who would ask every question. Okay, so if my left toe is pointing at a 60-degree angle, should I turn it to 65? Or I was painful as a student, but I really enjoyed it and I wanted to get better. And part of getting better was, okay, well, now that I know this pad work, now that I know how to slip or how to bob and weave or how to shield a kick, I should try sparring with it. And I loved it right off the bat. You know, I never shied away from getting hit in the face. I didn't have any ill intentions, but it was just like, oh, if I get hit, I should hit you back. You know, it was, okay, well, what did I do wrong to get hit, or how could I move better, or how could I punch you back without getting hit or getting hit less than you are. And so it just was more of a physical puzzle, but also a lot of adrenaline and like excitement to, oh my gosh, we're hitting each other in the face. It was awesome.
Right on. So there's some fighters that, and we've heard Joe and we've heard people in commentary or just the idea of there are certain fighters who really love actually that contact and it kind of wakes them up and they realize, okay, now I can get going. Do you actually kind of look forward to that contact?
Yeah, I don't know if I need to get hit to hit someone because I'm happy to hit somebody more than they hit me. But definitely when I've never really been clocked so hard that I've been rocked or, I've a couple times had kicks land that just like cut off the blood supply of the neck, but didn't like hit my head, if that makes sense. So I've never really been like dazed from a shot, but I've definitely, I have the tendency to not necessarily hit people as hard as I can, and I should be hitting them harder in a fight. And I do think that like if they connect with something, all of a sudden you're like, all right, this is turning more into a fight. And it becomes less like tactical for me and more fun.
With the issue, obviously, and the incident and the tragedy that happened with Tim Hague, people are more and more concerned with concussions more than they ever were. There's a lot more information with all sports. It feeds into some misconceptions, I think, of mixed martial arts and of combat sports in general. A lot of people don't understand like that Taekwondo is the national sport of Korea and that so many of these martial artists that are competing in the UFC and at that level have been training since they were kids. Does this feed into the misunderstanding of the UFC and is it or of combat sports? And what can we do? What can you do, I guess, to encourage people to seek out the real information about training in combat sports?
Well, I mean, I think I've never had a concussion. In all my years of training and all my years of fighting, I've never had a concussion. And I'm friends with all the women, for the most part, on the Canadian women's, both 15s and 7s team. I know the majority of those ladies, and the majority of them have all had concussions. Very few that I know of haven't had some incident. And that goes for football. That goes for hockey. You know, the ice is hard. That goes for soccer.
For soccer.
They have terrible concussions from heading the ball, from head-on-head with someone else. And I think a lot of that comes from the unexpected hit. They're not prepared for it, and down they go. Whereas, at least in MMA, you know what's coming. And so hopefully, if you're good enough, you move your head out of the way of a lot of things and they graze off. And I think that's why I often end up with bruises and black eyes. I mark up pretty easily, but I don't take that much actual trauma to my brain because I can see it and I can move out of the way. I mean, the big issues with concussions are, of course, knees to the head are, it's a lot of contact, and like head hitting the canvas or, again, accidental headbutts. They happen, but in MMA, because there are so many avenues, I would think, in my experience at least, that there are fewer concussions than in the majority of other major sports.
Well, they say obviously that boxing is one of the top ones, and that makes sense to me because
Absolutely.
it's constant contact. But tell me about your philosophy then in educating and instructing youth, and because there's a lot of people out there. There's going to be kids. It's so popular right now, going, Mom, Dad, I want to train. Mom, Dad, I really want to explore this because I see it on TV. It only makes sense that there's going to be more and more people involved in it. What do you have to say to parents who might be on the fence?
I think the biggest thing is finding a team that you trust. For me, I don't have kids spar. I have them live wrestle. I have them live grapple. I don't think that kids need to be sparring at that age. I think they can work their technique on the pads. They can work their technique on the gloves, work their shielding. I don't think kids need to be sparring. That being said, there's some amazing kids who do spar and I'm sure are fine. But I do think that with development, there's tons of time for that let them keep their passion. They can compete in grappling. They can compete in wrestling. They don't need to be, for me, boxing and kickboxing in competition at this age.
What's the right age then? Or what's a...
I think as they get to teenagers, I think is fine because I think that they have a better understanding of what it means to be hitting and getting hit by someone. I think at 7 or 8... that there's a very blurry line of emotion when it comes to the intention with which they're hitting other kids. So that's just my philosophy, but I'm sure there's lots of places that do it really well. But I do think it's a very safe sport as long as you have the proper equipment.
All right, so I got a list here of my top 10 favorite kung fu martial arts movies of the 1970s, or let's just say, because some of these were made in the 80s. Let's just say my favorite 10 martial arts movies when I was growing up. They were all from like the late 70s and the early 80s. And I just looked at another list on IMDb, and there's a bunch that I've forgotten. I'm just going to stick with my list and then mention a few at the end there that you probably should have made it on the list, but I can only count to 10. So I'm going to start with the bottom. And again, well, most of these are in really no particular order. They're all just fucking awesome as far as I'm concerned. Force 5 was super cool. Got to see Force 5. Then there was the two James Ryan films, Kill or Be Killed and Kill Again. I really liked those. The Chinese Connection, obviously, Bruce Lee. Good Guys Wear Black, Chuck Norris. The Octagon, also Chuck Norris. And then I've got a couple of ninja movies here in the top 5. Enter the Ninja and... I think there's Return of the Ninja, but I'll just say Enter the Ninja was Sho Kosugi. That was up there. I watched that a shit ton. I love ninjas so much. Of course, in the top 3, all Bruce Lee movies. Enter the Dragon, a lot of people would probably say is their favorite Bruce Lee movie. It isn't mine. I think it's amazing. It is fucking awesome, top to bottom, but I just like Game of Death better. Game of Death was made, I believe, was completed after Bruce Lee died. So there's a bunch of really weird scenes in it where whoever was making the movie tried to use stunt doubles and lookalikes, stand-ins, and actually cut and pasted images of Bruce Lee's face over the finished product with another actor trying to make it look more like Bruce Lee. There's some really clunky editing in this film. It is not good by those standards, but by the fight scenes that were all done by Bruce Lee, they're fucking amazing. And of course, if you know the film, you know he has to go up those in that building at the end when he's about to face off against the Kingpin. He has to go up the staircase and fight martial arts experts all the way up. And of course, he fights Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in a classic scene. And then, of course, finally, my favorite of all time, Return of the Dragon or Way of the Dragon. Hands down, in my opinion, the best fight scenes in all Bruce Lee movies.
Mamma mia!
I want to thank Sarah Kaufman once again for her time, for taking time out of her very busy schedule to sit down and chat with me. If you're interested in taking martial arts or just asking a few questions about how to start in martial arts, please give the folks at Zuma Martial Arts and Fitness a call. She's got a great gym there. They've got a great group of instructors. Dennis Kang is a special instructor, I guess, from time to time. He's listed on their website. And he, of course, was also in the UFC. I believe he's from the Lower Mainland area, an incredible fighter. Also, Adam Zugig. I hope I pronounced that right, Adam. They've got classes in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, women's kickboxing. They've got kids programs. They also have judo classes, wrestling, and, of course, mixed martial arts. If you want to check them out, they're on Facebook. They're on Twitter. I think their Twitter handle is @ZumaTeam. And what else? Give them a call at 250-475-2885. Great group of people. If you're interested in exploring mixed martial arts or any kind of martial arts or just fitness, give them a shout. Great group of people there at Zuma. All right, let's get into this interview with my good friend, Jonathan Phil. Been training in martial arts many years. And he's just a great guy, and I really appreciate his time and his opinion on all these issues, especially the issue surrounding safety, head injuries, concussions, and working with young people in mixed martial arts.
Okay, so, dude, I started as a kid, man. I started martial arts as a young kid, like most people. Like, you know, you go to the local Taekwondo dojo, and you just stick to it, bro. Like, I remember I just started just like that, and you start getting good, and after you just stick through it, man. And after I ended up doing some karate, high school came, I started getting some boxing and wrestling, and it just further evolution into different to arts. And next thing you know, I bump into guys that I trained when I was younger, and now they're kickboxing. So I'm like, why not check that out? And after it just happened to transition, majority of the people I grew up with, my friends, all were into the circle. And next thing you know, you start training. I've trained at many gyms. I used to train at TriStar. I've owned my own gym too. And one of my buddies, he's been doing jiu-jitsu for years. Like a good buddy of mine, Dave Knopfler, they know him as Big Dave, or they used to call him Houdini back in the day. And my dad's a bodybuilder, and my dad used to box and wrestle and all that stuff too, right? So when I was getting a teenager, I used to lift weights. And I used to be buff for my age. So like the older guys used to I used to chill with some of the older guys, and I used to lift weights with them. And I remember seeing one of my buddies, and he was just like tangling up everybody, and I was like, the hell's this guy doing, dude? And like, you know, I know how to wrestle, but he was on his back, and I didn't really understand what he was doing, like, you know. And like, he started showing me the UFC tapes and stuff like that, and he had like boxes of UFC tapes, and it's just like, you start seeing it, and after he's like, yeah, it's jiu-jitsu, and you're like, oh, cool, and you start learning and stuff like that, right? And it just went on from there, man. It's just an evolution, bro. When you're a kid and you do martial arts, you watch kung fu movies, like, you know, and
do you ever make your own weapons?
Dude, man, I made so many weapons. I remember I took my blinds, you know, the plastic part to rotate your blinds?
Oh, yeah.
Open and close. I used to take those, and it has that little hole in it, so you could just take a string and put it on. I remember, dude, I was that kid, dude. Like, anybody that grew up with me that could listen to this would be like, this guy's been kicking people and punching people since he was a kid. I was that kid, bro. And I was always the smallest one, but I hit the hardest, so people would always know, like, you know, they learned real quick, like, all right, don't mess with him because he's small, but he hits hard, dude.
Were you taking classes? Were your parents paying for you to go down and take classes,
Yeah.
like weekly, daily?
There was basically at my elementary school, there was a dojo that was right beside. There was, like, we called them a chalet back east, which is like a community center, and there was a guy, he was giving classes, right? And he was also a family friend of ours. So the Dantus family, so Daniel Dantus and his dad, they're Haitian descent, and his father ended up being one of the actual Olympic coaches. I think he was like part of the National Coaches Association, and so he was giving classes. But at first, what he was doing is he was giving classes, like 3 classes. So you go twice a week, you do your little training, and it was with no gi. You know what I'm saying? So it's like we'd go there and he'd show us how to throw kicks, and it was nothing. It was a little informal at first because he was a teenager and we were kids. But like next thing you know, like I could see what he was doing. He was basically trying to find good kids to like put into his competition team, because it was more like it was sportive. Yeah, you know, and it was just like I've always been known as that Ronin too. I was that guy that just used to bounce around from gym to gym. At the same time, I was part of TriStar. I was also part of BTT. I was also part of Riverdale Wrestling Club and stuff like that. I was part of Blackhawk MMA. Like, it was weird like that, dude. Like, I was that person, dude. I just went wherever the good guys were. There wasn't that many small guys, too. So, like, I really had to find guys. I catered my training really towards me, bro. Like, I went to a boxing club. I went to a kickboxing club. I went to a wrestling club. I used to go spar at TriStar and stuff like that. So I was more so that guy, you know, and I had my own little team too. Yeah. We had our own team of guys that were like guys from the West Island too, that we trained together. And then later when I had my gym, even before I had my gym, I was part of, like, I was training with Stefan Denis and stuff like that. So I always had like a core group of, let's say, 5 guys that were maybe my weight to 20 to 30 pounds heavier, that we trained together, that we were all part of different gyms, and we trained primarily with ourselves, and then depending what our schedule or whatever gym was closest to our work or whatever was more convenient, we'd go and train there. Right. So then we became that crew that just used to go gyms and just basically, like, people would be like, who the heck are these guys, man? We don't know these guys. These freaking, we'd show up at gyms and they'd be like, where are these guys from? Like, this doesn't even make sense. Like, they're kicking ass, but we don't know any of these guys. Yeah. You know, and like people, like, I remember there was one point.
Well, gyms got to be localized too, like surfing waters, right?
Exactly.
Walk into somebody's gym and start.
There are times that pro fighters would come to the gym, or like really established amateur guys, and they'd be like, yo, man, what the fuck's going on here? Like, they basically get the floor wiped around with them, and they didn't understand war, and they'd be like, who the hell are you guys? Like, nobody knows you guys. I'm the somebody here. One guy, before a fight, basically, he came thinking he was going to get in, like, some rounds, and I think his coach brought him as a bit of a confidence boost before. He's like, yeah, I'm going to bring you to a buddy's gym. You're going to get some sparring in with some guys. They're not of your caliber, but it was like, I guess he was going to give him a little boost of confidence before his fight. But, dude, we just kicked his ass, bro, man. Like, you don't understand, bro. 125s kicked his ass. The 135s kicked his ass. His 55s kicked his ass, man. Like, you know, and I knew the guy previously because he was part of my fight team. Like, you know, he was one of the first guys to actually go pro within our fight team, and he just didn't understand. He's like, yo, dude, man, like, it didn't make sense to him, man.
What do you think of Mayweather versus McGregor?
What do I think about?
What do you think of that?
It's like, dude, it's like basically picture a high school basketball player trying to go against LeBron James right now.
You think it's that big of a difference, eh?
It is that big of a difference, bro. You're having someone who has zero boxing like knowledge, like zero boxing experience, versus a guy like Mayweather that's like 87-5 amateur, undefeated, the best technical boxer of all time, bro. Like the best defensive boxer of all time, and like one of the best technicians that ever existed, bro. Like it's just it doesn't even make sense when you watch him do what he does to the best. He like the best fighters go in there, like, you know, and like he's very braggadocious. He's very, like, that's not a guy you want to lose to, bro. You see his prime times, bro. Yeah. He's flashing his $10 million worth of jewelry and his $25 million worth of car and like pulling out stacks of money everywhere. Just think about how braggadocious this guy is, you know. And everybody goes in there, yeah, I'm blah blah blah, and they just go in there and there's nothing they could do. They hit air. The guy's never touched the canvas once. Remember that. He's never been dropped. The closest he came was Sugar Shane put him on his heels a bit, and he shoulder rolled and came back into it. Zab Judah hit him with the left a bit, and since then he's never been hit with the left again, bro. Like, Pacquiao couldn't touch him, bro.
Yeah.
Pacquiao couldn't touch him. Like, it's just, I don't know, bro. Like, I find it rather insulting to boxing, actually.
Well, I think boxing feels a bit insulted. I think the boxing world feels a bit insulted. I think rightfully so. I think for the longest time, the Mayweather camp and all of his people felt insulted because, well, the first person to really chime on about it was Rousey, which is goes to show you just how delusional she was at the
when she said she could beat him, right?
Right. But I think we all know that the only way in the world, and what she really meant is that if it was an MMA fight, which is not a boxing fight. And I think we all know that, and we saw what happened with James Toney and Randy Couture, that in a real life fight situation, anything really goes. And if someone's an incredible stand-up fighter and has an incredible win, you know, knockout, fucking incredible record, they've knocked everybody out, and you're a wrestler, why the hell would you try and stand and box with them? It makes no sense. In a fight or flight situation, you take whatever best advantage that you have in your skill set to use it against someone else's skill set. So their skill set is null and void. It's the chess match, right?
Exactly.
It would never happen. They would never stand and exactly what happened. Couture took him down with his nice little ankle wraps and grabbed him. He's like, yeah, he's got ankle wraps on. Thank God.
He dribbled his head like a basketball.
That's true.
Bro.
Before they finally stopped it, and poor James Toney, I don't even think got a punch in. But you know, that wasn't. It was a joke for him to think he could stand. He could fight Randy Couture in an MMA fight. That's ridiculous. It would be ridiculous for Floyd Mayweather to think that he could win a mixed martial arts fight against Conor McGregor.
Oh, don't get me wrong.
Right?
Conor
we all agreed on that.
He's the better fighter, but the best boxer.
Exactly.
It's like, come on, like, you know, all controversy aside, a lot of people don't like Mayweather and everything because there's a lot of controversy about him. Right. But let's give it another, who do you think they're going to be talking about in 50 years as the best pound for pound, bro? Guys, like, they're going to have to say him. The athletes are better now than they were then. Yeah. Like, the guys have money now. They have the best trainers, the nutritionists. They have all the stuff that the guys didn't have back then. Boxers worked the job, bro. Some of these guys went to freaking work, man. Yeah. Like, you know, like, let's be serious, bro. Like, I don't know.
I think that where there's a punch, there's a chance, right? McGregor has a puncher's chance. He's the taller fighter. He's probably got more reach. He has a chin. He's got a really strong left hand, and I don't know and he's a southpaw, so there are things in his favor. But like you said, really it is, and he's older. You know, he's McGregor's a younger fighter.
Yep.
So there's a lot of things that say for me that there's a chance. There's a chance that he connects. There's always a chance.
He punches consistently about 100 punches around. Like, when you see his fights, not only does he outscore the guys, but if you see the amount of landed punches, the amount of punches he doesn't take, but it's the amount of punches he gives off. He's like, he's one of the, like, even guys, like, we could give examples of guys that were bigger than him, a little bit taller than him. Guys like De La Hoya. And even De La Hoya was like, man, Conor McGregor is like, it's good for him, payday-wise, but the only thing that I'm worried, to be perfectly honest with you, he could like basically get permanently injured, bro. There's a good chance he could get like some serious brain damage out of this, man. Like, you know, like
wow, you
look
think
what happened.
so, eh?
Like that's what I'm thinking more so. Like he could basically like that's in that aspect, unless his corner throws in the towel.
Yeah.
That's if his corner throws in the towel after a while and they do it strategically, he goes in there, boom, 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 boom. Like, tell you the truth, like he could just literally go in there,
what kind
step in the ring, have his corner thrown in a towel, and they still have to pay him up. Like, really and truly, unless there's a speculation in the contract saying he has to go minimum amount of rounds, he could go in there, put a knee down, and just, all right, thank you, give me my $60 million.
Never show his face again, ever, anywhere.
What, $60 million, dude? What do you need to show your face again for?
Sure, I'll see you guys later. I'll be on my island.
60 million, like, you know,
small
like,
island, but it'll be an island.
God dang.
Speaking of head injuries, man, like they're talking a lot about it right now, obviously for good reason. There's in every sport, you know, hockey, football, rugby, soccer, even concussions, man. Even in baseball, dude, people get beamed with balls. You know, all sports have a level of risk associated with them, man. People been rounding second and had their entire knee, shoot out the back of their leg, right? Like it, you know, things are, you know, and when we talk about high contact sports like football, you're talking about probably 5, 6, 7 kids in college every year have some kind of a spinal cord injury that is permanently changes their lives in different severity or another. I should probably have all the statistics in front of me, but we know. I did do a bit of research. There was looking at the most dangerous sports and accidents per and all this stuff. Skateboarding, holy shit, skateboarding, ankles, knees, wrists. You know, it's not head injuries and stuff. But
I've seen people get blacked out cold off skateboards too.
For sure, man.
Bro.
Oh, for sure. You bang the back of your head. It happens. It does. Man. It happens. But I'm saying I don't think it's as frequent as head injuries around football.
No. Football is like next level, man. Even have my little nephew that's 12 years old gets a freaking concussion a season, dude, and I'm like, that's not good.
12 years old getting concussions playing football, right? And it's that sport, because it is so much part of our Western culture and has been for so many years. It's part of school programs. There's so much money that goes into it. There's the whole advertising thing, right? In the United States, college football and whatnot. It's as American to those people as any, a Star-Spangled Banner. I mean, it is part of America. If you tried to take away their football, it'd be like trying to take away their guns, right? They would lose their fucking minds. So, but MMA, what do you, as far as your experience within the world of mixed martial arts, what are your thoughts on, the dangers of head injuries, and compared to maybe some of the other sports that you've played, and you've got kids that are involved in all of these sports, including mixed martial arts.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was about to chime in on, especially my son competes in kickboxing and jiu-jitsu. He's competed in many kickboxing fights. Now that I think about it, he's probably had a good 40 fights or something like that. He's been competing in kickboxing since.
And how old is he again?
My son just turned 12. I believe his first kickboxing fight, he might have been 7 or 8.
Yeah.
7 or 8. And he's competed at the nationals. He's qualified for worlds. And he started off just at the local tournaments.
Yeah.
And went through the regionals, provincials, and nationals. And
can I ask you a quick question? For people who don't understand kickboxing tournaments or other maybe types of tournaments, explain what kind of protective gear are they wearing at the age of 8, 9, 10?
Okay, so they'll have shin, instep, and foot guards.
Yeah.
They'd be wearing 10-ounce boxing gloves and a headgear. Majority, if it's a legitimate tournament, won't allow head strikes. So usually when they're a little younger, it's only like punches and kicks, and it's light contact.
Right.
So they'll actually monitor their hits. And this is like true kickboxing, not point fighting where you see a lot of kids are just jump around, they stop and touch him. So give me a second, Jake.
Yeah, for sure, man. Kids are always allowed to interrupt the proceedings, whatever, kids come first, man. So I'm thinking shin pads, right? So you're talking about thick foam that protects the shin from the knee cap all the way down to the ankle, at which point
there's a foot guard
pad takes over, and it covers all the way down to the toes, over the toes.
Yeah. Over the toes.
You've got the kids have got no chest protector.
You could choose to have a chest protector.
Which
So
if
any of our listeners did Taekwondo,
exactly,
or karate, sport karate more so, you notice it's basically the same thing. Yeah. You could choose to have a chest protector. Some guys do have chest protectors. The majority of people that wear chest protectors are, as when we go to open tournaments, kids that come from karate and Taekwondo backgrounds, depending what forms of karate. Like, I've done Kyokushin karate, and Kyokushin we never wore any pads and stuff like that. So, like, if you come from a softer style, they would have maybe the full chest protector and everything.
So, what's your philosophy then on martial arts and kids?
Me personally, I think that every kid should do martial arts. Every kid should do martial arts. I did martial arts as a kid. I just think that it instills a certain discipline into you. It teaches you, especially when you start, like, there's certain things that it taught my son, and it's not the actual combat aspect of it so much, and there's certain philosophies that I agree more so in martial art. It teaches you you're going to be the nail before you're the hammer, right? And there's always these little sayings I used to tell my son, like corny things like, a change only as strong as his weakest link. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And it was easy to tell him things like that, but when you're playing soccer or you're playing basketball, it doesn't make sense to you. So I put him into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and kickboxing, and especially in the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, he was getting handled every day. He was getting handled, man, and for a few months, and he wasn't liking it. And I just told him, stick to it, man. Just stick to it.
So he was getting worked.
He was getting worked. All the other kids have been doing it for at least a year, and jiu-jitsu's that art. It doesn't matter what you come from. You're gonna tap. You're gonna pay your dues, man. It's just what it is. I went through the same thing, and I explained to him, I'm like, Josh, I spent 6 months tapping every day. Every day, all I did is I'd go there, I'd freaking tap, and I'd come back home, ass whooped and stuff like that. And I'm like, shit. So I'm like, okay. So I explained to my son, I'm like, just give it a little while. Mm-hmm. These kids are bigger than you. They're stronger than you. They're using their size and their strength. Keep on practicing the techniques. I used to practice the techniques with him, teach him the Scalanos. 3 months later, he starts catching the guys. And by the time, like a year in, he ended up being the top student in the class. And he looked at me, I remember, he's like, at first I was doing it because, I thought it'd make you happy. I'm like, you don't have to do things to make me happy. Just be yourself, And he's like, but now I realized, when he saw that he could do it at that age, it kind of materialized it for him. You understand?
Yeah.
At that age, you don't really understand things okay, you could practice your drawing and stuff like that. But when he realized that he could physically overcome something just by practicing it, and that's when he learned that, okay, to get better at something, all I have to do is practice it and keep on doing it.
Yeah.
And that's what I find martial arts kind of instills in you at a young age, more so than other things like sports and stuff. Especially sometimes sports and other things, your parents think that they know better than you, especially if you come from a hockey family, a football family, soccer family. It's a little different. And I made sure that my son's experiences with martial arts were with other instructors instead of being me primarily. Even though I did start making him practice maybe at the age 5. When I put him into classes, I wasn't that selfish parent. I'm like, I'm qualified to teach. I've run a gym. I'm an experienced fighter. I let him learn from other people.
You wanted this to be his experience.
Exactly. I wanted to have other male role models that he could look up to, and people that he could look up to outside of me that he can trust. So it teaches him in life too to be more employable. There's just certain things about it.
Definitely.
If you can't be coached, you can't be employed in life. So there's certain things I just want him to understand that you you got to pay your dues. before you got to be a white belt, then you got to be a gray belt, then you got you have to learn, you have to respect the steps, and the people that are above you are there because they're more experienced than you got to pay your dues, and that's what I love about martial arts too. It instills that you learn that that person's there because they've been there before you, and you can't be there until you do the same things that they did. There's no skipping steps, especially in jiu-jitsu.
Hey, Take Warning wants to thank the following sponsors for making the podcast possible each and every week. Our friends at 477 Tattoo Studios. Check them out on Facebook. Also, Bullet Records. You can find Bullet Records spelled Bullitt on Bandcamp. Check out all of their material. We listened to a bunch of their music today. Well, that's it for episode 2 of Take Warning. Thanks for dropping by. Hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll see you next time.